One thing that we can say about ourselves that is true is that we are enfleshed yearning. St. Augustine, at the start of his Confessions, put it this way: "You have made us for yourself, O God, and our hearts are restless until they rest in you." What this means is that we're not restful creatures who occasionally get restless, fulfilled people who occasionally are dissatisfied, serene people who occasionally experience disquiet. Rather, we are restless people who occasionally find rest, dissatisfied people who occasionally find fulfillment, and disquieted people who occasionally find serenity. Ultimately, our profoundest dissatisfactions take their root in what's deep inside us, the image and likeness of God. We are fired into this world, so we're never really at home here. But along the way, we've been taught to put aside our deepest desires, which ultimately can lead us to lose heart. Now imagine this childhood scene. Little Johnny's about to go to bed, and Mommy comes to tuck him in and says, "Little Johnny, did you say your prayers?" "Yes, Mommy." "Good. Little Johnny, what did you ask for in your prayers?" "I asked for chocolate pudding tomorrow and for the Lions to win today." "Oh, no, little Johnny, you shouldn't ask for chocolate pudding tomorrow and for the Lions to win on Sunday. You should be praying for an end to the war in Syria, an end to the General Motors UAW strike, and for the Holy Father's October intention, a missionary spring in the church." Well, of course, little Johnny takes all this on board. His mother has just thrown water on his smelly little desires, and he's been taught to despise them and to instead want more noble things that will make him stand tall in the world of his parents. The curious thing, though, if we're to believe the gospel, this is the reverse pattern of what God wants. It would appear that God does not despise our smelly little desires, and in fact suggests that if we only hold on to them and actually insist on articulating them, then we'll actually find for ourselves that we want even more than those desires. But we really do want something with passion. In other words, God takes us seriously in our weakness and unimportance, even when we don't. Here's the model who Jesus puts before us for prayer in Luke's Gospel: a relentless widow. Then Jesus told them a parable about the need to pray always and not to lose heart. At first, this sounds as though Jesus is giving advice about not becoming discouraged. But if we look at the story from the perspective of desire, it's about how, through becoming insistent desirers, we will actually be given a heart. If we do not desire, we will not have a heart. Now, we should notice that this judge is much more like a concrete block than a human being, since he's able to be moved neither by others nor by God. In that city, there was a widow who kept coming to him and saying, "Grant me justice against my opponent." So now we have an inconvenient person, the sort of person who has no one to stand up for her, who is not held in high regard, and whose satisfaction is of no importance to those living in the city. She is the equivalent of a smelly desire. But she's persistent and just keeps on with her demand. For a while he refused, but he was afraid she would wear me out by continually coming. This is actually a sports metaphor. The judge is afraid the widow will give him a black eye, and so he decided to grant her justice. And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God grant justice to his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night?" Does Jesus really think that God is like an unjust judge? Of course not. But God knows that all of us are inclined to have an unjust judge well installed into our consciousness. We have all acquired a set of voices which seem to be completely impervious to anything. These voices, should we be so bold as to want something, will quickly send down little messages to us. Shouldn't want that if I were you. Better not to want much so as not to be disappointed. Or, well, and who do you think you are? You couldn't possibly do that. Or in the famous line from Oliver Twist, more? And the point of these messages, of course, is to shut down our desire. Our unjust judge is internal to each one of us, a glowering no in the face of our potential happiness. Yet what Jesus recommends is a long-running, persistent refusal to have our smelly little desires put down. Instead, to engage in a constant guerrilla warfare of desiring so that eventually even the block in our head starts to yield, and what is right for us starts to become imaginable and obtainable. God is not like the judge, a hermetic block. God is like the irritating desire, which gets stronger and stronger. It is only through our wanting something that God is able to give it to us. As St. Augustine pointed out, God is at the very center of our desire. But it took Augustine a long time to discover that. He wrote, "Late have I loved you, O beauty ever ancient, ever new. Late have I loved you. You were within me, but I was outside, and it was there that I searched for you." So Jesus rightly wonders, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? Desire is a vital element of faith, becoming able to imagine something good, and so to want it, and then, as one wants it more, finding it more possible to imagine it more fully. Silence the unjust judge. Dare to imagine a goodness which could be ours, and not only dare to want it, become crazed, single-minded athletes of system-shattering desire. Only then we will really allow ourselves to be given heart.